DDoS attacks are on the rise, according to some newly released information in a report. Lance Whitney here with me for Tech Republic to talk a little bit more about this. I know you've been diving into this research, Lance. I think a good place to start would just be explain what these attacks look like. You know, what is a DDoS attack?
Sure. So DDoS, Karen, stands for Distributed Denial of Service Attack, which is why everybody calls them DDoS, because it's a lot easier to say. So there's this new report that came out from NordVPN teams, and those are part of the company that that sells a VPN software. So what they actually let me just explain quickly what a DDoS attack is, and then I can talk a little bit about what the report found as far as an increase in these attacks. So DDoS basically is when an attacker tries to take down a website or a web server by flooding it with too much traffic. So the idea is that you flood the server with so much traffic and so many requests that the server computationally can no longer handle it. So what happens is the server and the site slow down to the point where they're difficult to access. And in some cases, if the attack is strong enough and long enough, lengthy enough, the site gets totally clobbered and is taken offline or is totally inaccessible. So these can be a pretty powerful weapon to be used against a site that an attacker wants to take down. And what the folks at the NordVPN Teams group found out is that DDoS attacks have been increasing as of late. And they pinpointed a couple of reasons for this. And number one is because of the coronavirus quarantine and because so many people are working from home or working remotely, there's a much greater reliance now on cloud-based services and websites and web servers to do business and to do work remotely. So these types of sites are more vulnerable from that point of view, just because there's so much more in demand than ever. So that's one reason. And another reason that they found was that DDoS attacks tend to be pretty cheap to roll out. And I have a statistic here that the group offered. They found out when they checked the dark web for pricing, they discovered that a targeted DDoS attack can sell for as little as $10 per hour or $60 for 24 hours. So when we talk about per hour, that just means how long that DDoS attack is designed to last. So if it goes for an hour, that only costs you $10. If it goes for a full 24 hours, that only costs you $60. So these are pretty bargain basement prices as far as carrying out this type of attack. So those two reasons, really the prominence of and use of cloud-based services and the inexpensive way these attacks can be carried out, really both of those are lending themselves to a dramatic rise in DDoS campaigns.
Yeah, that's pretty alarming. That cheap, Lance, that you just consult with the dark web and there's your info there. Well, any recommendations that were passed along as part of this report? What people can do to keep themselves from falling victim to this?
Sure, Karen. So they shared a few different recommendations with me. So the first and most obvious one is to develop a denial of service response plan. So the idea is you have to think about not if one of these attacks may occur on your website and web service, but when. So in that event, you want to make sure that your organization is prepared, that your data center is prepared, that you have a checklist in place. And above all, you want to make sure that the necessary people are available and know what to do and know their roles and responsibilities, so that if your website, if your web server is hit by one of these attacks, you're not contemplating about, well, what do we do next? You have an action plan in place so that you know what to do and how to do it. And another tip that they offered here was a common one. It's securing your network infrastructure. So this means basically having the right security tools in place. And this can be this is often a collection of tools that you have that either work independently or can really work together in some aspects. So some of the specific tools that you want would obviously be a firewall. You want a VPN or some other means for remote users to securely gain access to your network, anti-spam software, content filtering. So these are all tools that you need to look at and implement together in order to try to thwart these kinds of attacks. A third recommendation they had was to make sure all your systems are up to date. So this obviously is vitally important, especially for your web servers. You want to make sure that they're fully patched and that they have the latest security updates that can at least make them a little bit less vulnerable to any type of attack. A fourth tip that they offer here is to use the cloud. So there are cloud-based services that will be on the lookout for DDoS attacks and strategies, and that can alert you if there's some type of attack that's making the rounds out there to which your organization and your web server might be vulnerable. These sites, these cloud-based sites and services can alert you to these so that at least you get kind of a heads up so it doesn't come as a total shock if you do get hit by one of these attacks. And then final recommendation they had here is that your remote IT team, your remote security team, make sure they're not using a public Wi-Fi or unencrypted Wi-Fi to sign into the network, because that's a sure way to get into trouble. You want to make sure, again, that you have some kind of VPN or other secure gateway that people are using to sign into your network so that it's not as vulnerable.
Some great advice to pass on there, Lance, and certainly something that we've got to keep top of mind. It just seems so often we're hearing about an increase in different types of attacks and new ways they're getting at things, and we can never let our guard down, that is for sure. Well, for much more on DDoS attacks and what you need to know, make sure you check out Tech Republic. Thanks so much for watching.